Everyone, and welcome back to the Journal of Huntsman, the podcast I'm treating like my personal audio journal where we talk about everything, from philosophy, martial arts, lifestyle, current events, or honestly, whatever is going to be on my mind. Before getting into everything, I just wanted to give a reminder to whoever's listening, you're appreciated, you're loved, and you're seen. Now, the topic for today's video is following up with what I said last time. If you haven't seen my last video, don't worry. I basically get into why it's okay to be childish and what that means, what it looks like. Like, finding that balance between being childish and mature versus childish and immature in your own life. Because I don't know about you, but I think there can be some really nice benefits to some childlike traits. Some things that we can use more as we grow up and into adulthood. Excuse me. And how this is going to build up into today kind of stems from like something I've kept ever since I was a kid. It's always been like a really deep love for cartoons and animated shows. Like ever since I was little, I think the first show I remember falling in love with was Avatar: The Last Airbender. I can remember the first episode that aired and watching on the floor of my family's living room, seeing Katara get mad and then she and Sokka hang out of the iceberg, and watching the entire adventure unfold over 3 seasons that just got better and better and better, and I watched. Avatar is peak fiction if you've ever seen a cartoon show, honestly. Now, why am I talking about cartoons today? Because I'm going to put into practice what I talked about last episode and dive into something that I just find cool and enjoyable. I want to try breaking down some of the more mature elements I use in watching a lot of these cartoons and I guess kid shows. And while I would love to break down and dive into Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm going to dive into another show that I know some of you may know, some of you might know about, and that's going to be Castlevania. So, Castlevania. Castlevania is a show that Netflix made back in 2017. It ended fairly recently in May of 2021. Honestly, that date is shocking me because it feels like it ended just last year for me. But I've been a huge fan of the show since I saw it in high school. The show follows 3 main protagonists. There's Trevor Belmont, Cypher the Speaker, and Alucard, as they battle the forces of Dracula and his armies bent on destroying the world. That is the big thing for the first 2 seasons, and then I guess the last 2 seasons you still see them fighting the forces of Dracula more broadly. They fight other forces from the vampire world and that are, I guess evil, or they're the bads. Now, that serves as a rough summary of the show, and I don't really want to spoil anything for anyone who decides to watch it, but yeah, I can't even lie, I might spoil it just a bit. It's hard for me not to, when a lot of my favorite parts of the show have to deal with key points of the show as well. Like key things that end up happening that you just love noticing as you watch the characters develop. And so now if I had to talk about what got me into the show, well, it was really 2 things. For one, it was the art style, and second thing was the tone. The show starts off with a kind of gritty and dark feel to it, and the art felt both really engaging, but also really distant. Like it showed off just enough of the human traits of characters so that I could love watching them on the screen, but also very much played into a kind of like limitless feeling you can only achieve in animation, in my opinion. The characters felt both real and unreal. And so when I paired that with the kind of carnage and violence that take place during the first episode and later in that first season, I was just hooked completely on the show and what it was doing. And I didn't get hooked just because it was violent. I got hooked because there was a story to the violence, and I found that really engaging. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention about with the plot is that while Dracula is the villain, he's also a very understandable villain. He's a villain you could almost root for in a lot of ways, and the story is set in 15th or 16th century Wallachia, and the Catholic Church is on the hunt for witches. And they end up taking Dracula's wife from their home while he's away. While Dracula is away and seeing the world just as his wife wanted him to do. And I honestly just think about that. Dracula, the big bad Dracula, the legend of them all, the king of the night. Dracula fell in love with a woman named Lisa, and after they got married, she told him that if he is to love her as a man, he should travel as a man and see the world as a man. So he did. He did travel and see the world, and when he returned, it was to the news that the church took his wife away for heresy and witchcraft. They burned her at the stake with a crowd of onlookers who watched and did nothing. And so you have this really compelling narrative and story surrounding Dracula, already that you kind of have to feel for. It's not just the fact that he's a villain. It's not the fact that he is the vampire that we all know and have heard about, but he's also a feeling and emotional being. They set up the reason for why Dracula is wreaking havoc on the world at the start of the show. And you're seeing the effects of that immediately afterwards. And so Dracula came, and he found out that the church had killed his wife, even going so far as to appear above their heads in the sky as a flaming apparition of his face, and then question them as to why they did this. And then this starts the downfall. This is the main reason for Dracula's intense desire for his vengeance on mankind, why he just loses all hope in humanity after they do this one thing. See, watching this all on TV may seem weird to some people, but I like to really think about what a show is saying. What is the writers are trying to show and convey? When I watched all of this over the course of a few episodes, I felt compassion for the villain, for Dracula, because it's understandable. All of his frustrations, his violence, his anger, and his sadness are all understandable because they came from a place of love and dashed hopes for the future. It's not just a villain wanting to wreak havoc on the world for a petty and almost small reason, a small action. He was beginning to love, and he was beginning to change and grow and evolve. And then the hope that he had for his future was taken away from him. That they killed an innocent woman who was his wife. The only crime she could really be accused of doing was loving someone that they didn't understand, and wanting to bless the world with science, bless the world with techniques for healing and medicine that people have forgotten. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about Dracula. I love both. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about Dracula as a character. I love both his iteration in Castlevania, but other movies and shows do an insane job of portraying the character as well. And I actually had to write a paper about him my freshman year of college in 2019. And through that paper, I gained a really big appreciation for Gothic horror representation, just in movies, shows, books, TV, whatever. And Dracula is one of my favorite characters actually to talk about. But this show isn't just about Dracula. But one thing I did understand more as I watched was that power doesn't make a person invulnerable to love, and love can break the greatest of people down. Now, besides Dracula, some of the characters that are important to talk about as well, of course, are Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard, and also one of my fan favorites is Isaac. So Trevor was a Belmont, the last son of a prestigious monster hunting family who protected the public but was run out of their home and banished due to politics. When you first see Trevor, he's drunk in a bar, and basically gets his ass beat in a bar fight with some random people. But as the season finishes, you see him starting to find his purpose again. Throughout the whole show, I loved Trevor and his character because it felt like he was this disgruntled but dedicated and talented man who was searching for his purpose in life again. Each season is just him coming to grips with different forms of responsibility and accepting the reality of who he is and what he can do. Next, Sypha. Sypha's a magician, and she's from this tribe of wandering nomads called Speakers, who pass down history orally. And they have a long and vast history kept within their culture, but all of it's passed down from word to mouth, and nothing's actually written down. Sypha is also, what I can't realize, one of the most incredible characters in the series. The way she uses magic in the show is freaking awesome, and she never backs down from a challenge due to someone's ignorance. She's willful, incredibly willful, and also capable, which makes me admire her character in the show so much more. Alucard is the half-human, half-vampire son of Dracula and Lisa, and that gives him some perks that most vampires don't have. It also gives him a certain level of depth that you see him struggle with throughout the entire show. His mother was a human who turned Dracula and made him fall in love, encouraging him to see the light in humanity and teach him to be better. And his father is the literal personification of the King of the Night, one of the oldest, strongest, and wisest beings in the world, who raised him, but now also threatens humanity out of grief and desperation. Alucard has to battle with the sheer scale of what they have to do. To kill Dracula is to save all of Legia, but also rob the world of one of the oldest beings, one of the wisest people there is, with knowledge long forgotten and useful in so many ways. One of the strongest beings that inspired fear in so many, but also awe and admiration from others. They would also rob Alucard of his last living family member. Each character has a kind of background that I could feel drawn towards and was really interested in for different reasons, and that made it more enjoyable seeing all the characters play off one another. And this is how I also see most TV shows and television that I end up watching. I think that pain and endurance are admirable. And when I see it in characters in cartoons or anime or movies or television, I just feel inspired. And when I see it in other people as well, I also feel inspired because I think it's encouraging. I Thinking about someone enduring and persevering through hardships is just one of the most comforting things I could think of seeing any day all the time. I mean, I watched Aang overcome hardship as a 12-year-old boy, while I was also a 12-year-old boy, and the amount of hope and inspiration I got from that show was empowering. I didn't think of it as empowering because I was really young at the time, but I just thought of it as cool. And I just knew that it would be so cool if I could be like that. Besides being able to bend the elements to my will, I wanted his hope and his optimism. I wanted his wisdom and his personality. I wanted to be strong like him. And from Aang, when I was 12, to Alucard, Trevor, and Saifa when I was 18 or 19, the message remained the same. It was really similar, actually. Seeing their strength made me want to emulate and be strong myself. And that is the beautiful thing about cartoons. They're based on a reality that isn't real, but can look, sound, and feel real. Because the creators are human, and they're trying to tell us a story. And, well, humans love stories. We always have, and I'm sure we always will, because they run around in our minds and they fill our heads with images and ideas. Ideas of heroism, bravery, wisdom, and love are all things that you would notice in today's TV shows, movies, media. But while it may seem childish to notice such depth from a cartoon, I don't think that changes its value and worth. Kids may be able to connect to cartoons like adults can connect to reality TV or the news. We're all hearing and watching stories regardless. It's just, you have to pick and choose. Make a choice about what it is you're absorbing and taking in from these outlets. I mean, hell, I watched a show about a 1,012-year-old kid with the destiny to change the world and bend the elements when I was 12, and all it did was make me want to be optimistic, be strong, to smile more, and love my friends. And now, I watched a show about vampire hunters, magicians, and magic and horror, but all I learned from that was to be grateful for life and what I have around me. To not shy away from responsibility, but take hold of it and run. The importance of true friends having your back. Now, before I end the episode off, I do want to encourage you to do a few things. For one, check out Castlevania or Avatar: The Last Airbender if you haven't seen them yet. And two, think about characters you admired growing up and how they affected you. Right? Look into if you admired certain behavior and you tried emulating that yourself, or if you hated the way a certain character did something, so you tried very hard to not be like that. Look into it and think about it. Think about what their character traits might have done for you. Now, thank you again for listening today, and just another reminder that you're appreciated, you're seen, and you're loved. I'll see you all next time, and don't forget to check out the Journal of a Huntsman anywhere. We're available on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. I'm posting more TikToks. I'm also listed on a few other podcast directories. I'm doing as much as I can to grow this as fast as I'm able to. If you think a friend might enjoy hearing some of the episodes or what I have to say, please shoot them a link with one of the videos. But like I said again, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.